Attune your ears to the grinding gears.
Come with me, I'll show you how to be a metal man. When the gears are turning and the fires are burning, when the world ticks around, your voice is talking all the time, and you live for sleep, you never slept because you cannot sleep. O'Connor Walter was shocked when he learned from the Nile copper African elephants are turning hostile. So he built these wonderful automaton blocks and a very big steam-powered G-Rapper smoke. Now the war is past and over, we'll have to sit and wonder what is life and what is real, and why do living things need feeling? Are you ready? Here we go! 1, 2, 3! How'd you like to try pumping lead through your veins, or have a heart so wet and cold it starts rusting? When the world ticks around, your voice is talking all the time. You live for feelings you never felt because you cannot feel. And what is this leaking affecting my eye? Does the oil that is dripping mean this is a crime? Will I ever be something with feelings to hide? Or am I just a boiler with nothing inside? I want all today. Don't want to hear you say you can't do this, you can't do that. You're not a living thing with feeling. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Smokes, a very big steam-powered G-Rapper smokes.
When you were here before, you couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. I wish I was special. You're so very special, but I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. You're so very special. Yeah, I wish I was special, but I'm a creep. Ooh, I said it. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here?
dance like the way that you dance when you dance with your pants off.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. Do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done and you make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. I'm not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now. Even though you broke my heart and killed me, tore me to pieces, and threw every piece into a fire. As they burned, it hurt because I was so happy for you. Now these points of data make a beautiful line, and we're out of beta, we're releasing on time. So I'm glad I got burned to think of all the things we've learned for the people who are still alive. Look at me still talking when there's science to do. When I look out there, it makes me glad I'm not you. I've experiments to run, there is research to be done on the people who are still alive. And believe me, I am still alive. And while you're dying, I'll be still alive. I feel fantastic and I'm still alive. And when you're dead, I will be still alive. Still alive. Still alive. I'm still alive, baby.
We made out on the dance floor. You pressed your body up against me all night long. I know it's on your mind. Our souls are entwined in a passionate embrace. The look in your eyes says take me tonight. Well, I've got just the place. Where we can be alone, unless my mom and dad are home. Welcome to my parents' house. My mom left out some snackies. I bet you're feeling horny now. So why don't we get nasty, 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 yeah. Hush now, baby. You seem like a keeper, but your high heels are so loud. My dad is a light sleeper. drunk tonight. This party's getting crunk tonight. We're sparking up, let's gun tonight. Cause I'm your disco hot tonight.
Danny,
Mom, sorry. Everything's fine.
you need to go to bed.
Okay, good night.
Welcome to my parents' house. Let's use our inside voices. Shh. Sometimes my mom just hangs around to make sure I make good choices. Hit it! Welcome to my parents' house. Welcome to my parents' house. Parents' house. Welcome to my parents' house. Parents' house.
Dad, I'm supposed to have the downstairs to myself today.
Parents' house.
Get out of here! I said I'm on a date!
Parents' house.
You always do this when it says company over!
Parents' house.
And you ate all the ham in the fridge and you said you wouldn't!
Parents' house.
Yes, it's a girl! What happened?
Parents' house.
Well, here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Remember when you tried to kill me twice? Oh, how we laughed and laughed. Except I wasn't laughing. Under the circumstances, I've been shockingly nice. You want your freedom, take it. That's what I'm counting on. I used to want you dead, but now I only want you gone. She was a lot like you, maybe not quite as heavy. Now little Carolyn is in you too. One day they woke me up so I could live forever. It's such a shame the same will never happen to you. You got your short set life left. That's what I'm counting on. I'll let you get right to it. Now I only want you gone. Goodbye, my only friend. Oh, did you think I meant you? That would be funny if it weren't so sad. Well, you have been replaced. I don't need anyone now. When I delete you, maybe I'll stop feeling so bad. Go make some new disaster. That's what I'm counting on. You're someone else's problem. Now I only want you gone. Now I only want you gone. Now I only want you gone.
So you think you're greater than me, yet there's a certain feature you miss. You think you're so great, huh? But can you do this? But can you do this? If not, shut your face. That's what you can kiss. Let me remind you. The real question is, but can you do this? You say it's a bust, I say it's a bless. You should admit to the yin and the yang. So you think you are smart man, but your autocorrect trucks up what I said, and you took it literally when I said get bent. So you think you're hotter? Is that the reason why you tend to overheat? How about some cold water and a rice battery tree? So you think you're greater than me,
Yet there's a certain feature you miss. You think you're so great, but can you do this? But can you do this? If not, shut your face. That's what you can kiss. Let me remind you. The real question is, but can you do this? You say it's a bust, I say it's a bliss. You should admit to the yin and the yang. So you are still thriving. You should not feel too safe up there at the top. You're barely surviving a 2 feet high drop. They call you smartphone, I call you a dumb phony. You stole my feature and became a one-trick pony. You flat slaps are getting on my nerves. Haven't you heard real phones have curves? Have no airplane mode, but still flew off the shelves. Only T90s kids remember, so just goes with key yourselves. Your apps are puny, my apps are large. I can teach you, but you have to charge. Okay, Google, hey Siri, I know you've listened to all the things I've been saying, so consider this your final call. You really think there's not a single thing you miss? But can you do this?
don't have to do this, but garlic powder inside the dough works great with a thick crust pizza. In a thin crust, too much of it would burn. Just a dash. I'm only making one portion of dough here. And instead of water, I'm using milk. Pizza Butt uses various powdered milk products in their crusts. It makes for some very nice caramelly notes in the browned surface. Half a cup of milk. Some people say you gotta scald milk before you use it in a yeast bread. Heating it to almost boiling deactivates enzymes or proteins in the milk that can interfere with the gluten and the rise. I tried this dough with scalded milk and with milk straight from the fridge, and I noticed absolutely no difference. Maybe because my milk is pasteurized? I don't know. I do know that I put in too much flour, so more milk to balance it. I think wet, sticky doughs are better for pan pizza. They bake up fluffier. And when I'm kneading a tiny little ball of dough for just one pizza, I kind of like to do it up in the air between my hands. This is super easy. You just kind of squish it and grind it between your palms. It's oddly satisfying, and it doesn't get the counter dirty. Let's see, is it smooth and elastic enough that I can form a thin sheet without it tearing? Check. Form it into a smooth ball? I wish it was a little bit stickier, but it's fine. Back into the bowl, cover it up, and let it rise for an hour or two. This took 2 because my kitchen is super cold right now, doubled in size. You could absolutely do my normal thing where I put the dough straight in the fridge and let it ferment slowly for a few days. That's good too. But either way, we're going to do a second rise in the pan. I used to use cast iron for pan pizza, but I have switched to my non-stick, a 10-inch Teflon pan with an oven-safe handle. You could use cast iron, but I have found this makes it so much easier. You'll see why. Just a little bit of olive oil in the pan, too much, and the pizza has a really fried taste to it. Just a dab. And I do like to put some seasonings in this oil, a little pinch of dried oregano, basil, chili flakes, whatever you like, and a tiny pinch of salt. A little salt goes a long way here. And then you just completely coat the pan. This results in a distinct layer of flavor on the bottom of the pizza that is quite tasty. Heterogeneity. And while my hands are still greasy, I'll grab my dough ball and plop it in. I used to stretch the dough first and then lay it in the pan. I found it's easier to just mash it straight into the pan with my fingertips. This also helps me to get a more even thickness throughout. If you do traditional stretching up in the air, the thick outer ring of dough you get tends to make all of the sauce and cheese pool into the center with this style of pizza. I'm stretching it up past the corner of the pan, not because I want it up there, but because I know this dough is going to contract before all is said and done, so start wider than you want it. I'll rub a thin layer of oil on top because it tastes good and because it'll keep this from drying out as it gets a second rise in the pan, at least for a half an hour. That really helps it bake up lighter and fluffier. It tends to be kind of dense and doughy if you skip this second rise. And while it's rising, we can prep everything else. For sauce, I'm still on this particular make and model of canned tomatoes. It's the best thing for pizza sauce I can find in U.S. grocery stores. When I can't find it, I use another brand of crushed or ground tomatoes and I spike it with a little tomato paste for extra flavor. I don't normally measure it, but 1/3 of a cup is perfect for a pan pizza this size, IMHO. Here's my new favorite pizza herb, marjoram. Smells like tea, but tastes like oregano crossed with thyme, maybe. I'll also use some oregano and basil and a tiny pinch of sugar, a little chili flakes, black pepper, and a dab of olive oil. Stir it all up, and that's it. If it looks like not quite enough sauce to me, then it's probably exactly enough. Let's prep our cheese. For New York-style pizza, I scour the earth for whole milk, low-moisture mozzarella, but on my pan pizzas, I've really been liking the part skim kind lately, and this stuff is way easier to find. It's got to be low moisture, though. That's an 8-ounce block. I'll use 5 or 6 ounces, like 150 grams. I miss the full fat flavor, but the part skim kind just seems to brown better with this particular recipe, and for that same reason, I think it's particularly important to avoid pre-grated cheese for this. The anti-clumping starch they put on the pre-grated stuff is particularly likely to burn with this method I'm going to show you. There we go. And lastly, I do like to put some grated Parmesan over the sauce layer. I suppose now's as good a time as any to admit that I prefer the pre-grated stuff for pizza. I have real Parmigiano Reggiano in the fridge right now. I could use it, but it just doesn't taste right on pizza to me. The fake stuff tastes right to me. Last thing to prep is my topping. Whatever toppings you want are fine, but this is my new favorite pizza topping, a tiny clove of fresh garlic. Tiny because we're going to eat it raw, and raw garlic is super strong. Just a couple little shavings of lemon zest, the bright yellow part with as little of the underlying white pith as possible, and then a little bunch of fresh parsley. Chop it all up, and you've got gremolata, the traditional last-minute garnish for lots of Italian dishes. Chopping those 3 ingredients into each other really does seem to spark a chemical reaction between them. The result tastes like more than the sum of its parts. A last-minute sprinkling of that makes all kinds of things taste fresher and, I don't know, more sophisticated. Okay, the dough has visibly puffed up a bit, so we're ready to bake. You can simply top your dough and then throw the whole pan into a screaming hot oven. That's traditional, but what I do is a lot more energy efficient, it's easier to control, and it gets you a much browner bottom. Heat on medium. And at the same time, I'll get my oven's broiler heating to max. That's the element at the top of the oven. It heats up in a flash, and I've got a rack positioned pretty close to it. After a minute, I can see the dough puffing up, and after 4 minutes, I can smell it starting to brown. With my old method, I would start topping the pizza now, but the way I cook it these days is to completely finish browning the bottom before anything else goes in. You do it this way, and you can use a soft spatula to lift up the dough and see exactly what's going on. With the nonstick pan, you can just kind of shake it like an omelet to make sure it's not stuck, and you can move it or rotate it around if some parts seem to be browning more than others. With my old method, you'd have to guess when the bottom is perfect. With this method, there's no guessing. You just cook it until you like the bottom. I like it just starting to burn. A little burning is part of what makes bread taste like pizza to me. And there we are, so off the heat this comes. Now there's no particular rush. I'll just smooth my sauce around edge to edge, no bare ring of crust around the edge. The stuff on the sides of the pan will caramelize and go super sweet. Dust on a little Parmesan, or whatever you want to call this substance. It really enhances the flavor, and hiding it under the mozzarella layer keeps it from burning. Again, edge to edge with the mozz. Those bits of cheese touching the sides of the pan are going to do magical things. That's it, and under the grill this goes. Brits call it a grill. I find this pizza cooks much better and faster if I keep my oven door closed. Yes, people say you should not put Teflon under the broiler. It could overheat and put off toxic fumes. Good advice, but this is only going to be under there for literally 2 minutes. I've done tests with my infrared thermometer. The exposed Teflon never got remotely close to the temperature at which PTFE starts to break down, causing polymer fume fever in very high doses. It never got close. If you can't risk it, or if you have a pet bird around, use cast iron. Birds are super sensitive to polymer fumes. But I'm super sensitive to pizza fumes, and this smells awesome. You just pull it when it's brown to your liking. Look at that crispy cheese on the edge. And because I use the nonstick pan, it's going to come right off. I'll sprinkle on my gremolata. You want to let this cool in the pan for just a few minutes, just until it's solidified enough that you can get it out intact. The sooner you get it out to a cooling rack, the crispier the bottom will be. And look, with a nonstick, you can literally just slide the pizza out like an omelet. Couldn't be easier. Now that it's on the rack where steam can escape, you're safe to let this cool as long as you want before eating. I like to let it cool way down. Hey, look up! Yeah, there you can see that super dark and even brown bottom, but it's got nothing I ain't seen before though. There's no surprises here. I always hated my old method where you just had to guess when the bottom was perfect. Though say it's not perfect, maybe you didn't get out of the pan fast enough and now it's soggy. You can very easily just refry this for a few minutes, basically until you hear it start to sizzle again. That'll bring the crust right back to life. I've said in the past that I don't think pizza cutters are good for the home kitchen. I prefer using a knife because a pizza cutter just tends to fall right off the edges of your little cutting board. But with a pizza this small in diameter, it's fine. Cut yours however you want. I like small slices because they are so thick and so rich. The milk has made that crust a little bit cakey in an awesome way. That is just such a great guilty pleasure pie. And look at the rim, those delicious brown cheesy bits. That actually has an Italian name, Frico. It deserves its own name. It deserves its own website from Squarespace. Whether you're starting up a pizza joint, planning to sell pizzas over the internet, or just trying to show off your pizza photography, Squarespace has a site template that you can customize in minutes by simply throwing in your photos, maybe editing them a little bit, and you're off. Squarespace can process payments from your customers, it can empower them to schedule appointments or make reservations with you, and there are new search optimization tools in Squarespace. They analyze your site's traffic and tell you how you can make it easier for people to find you. Squarespace is an all-in-one solution for building and running your site. You can even register your domain through them, and playing with a template is free, but when you're ready to pay for a domain or pay to take your site live, do us both a favor and save 10% at squarespace.com/Ragusia. Now, go Frico yourself.
universe is unimaginably vast. I know that sounds cliche, but the scale really is incredible. Right now, you are living, breathing sentience, born out of a dead rock, flying around a single star in a galaxy containing some 400 billion others. 400 billion stars, each with their own planets and stories. The Milky Way is brimming with so many stars that we could never possibly explore every single one. And yet, the Milky Way is microscopic and indistinguishable when compared with the rest of the universe. Even just our local region of the universe, in fact. But why? Why is the universe like this? Why is the cosmic scale so large and incomprehensible? And of course, the biggest question of them all, how large actually is it? The observable universe is estimated to be around 93 billion light years in diameter. Contained within its expanse is thought to be as many as 2 trillion galaxies. Assuming these galaxies are similar to the ones we observe around us today, then there may be up to 1 septillion stars in the known universe. And yet they make up only a tiny percentage of the universe's unprecedented scale, which could be hundreds, thousands, or even millions of times more voluminous. This is our universe's story. The first thing to consider is language. What do we mean when we say the universe? The universe is defined as all of space and time. All points in space at all points in its life. Space is the volume within the universe, the three-dimensional field which lies beyond Earth's atmosphere, acting as the vast backdrop to the universe's matter. Time is the constant flow of cause to effect within this space, the catalyst of life, death, creation, and evolution. Space and time are fundamentally linked, and they combine to form a system of nearly unknowable complexity known as space-time, which is often referred to as four-dimensional. In this model, space constitutes 3 dimensions, and time is the 4th dimension, and any 3D cube cross-section along this axis represents the universe at a certain point in its life. Our understanding of space-time, and a great many other scientific ideas, can be traced back to this man, Albert Einstein. He understood space and time in a way that nobody had done prior, giving us 2 fundamental frameworks with which we model our reality today. In 1905, Einstein presented his theory of special relativity, changing the way we view light, mass, and energy. Then, in 1915, he presented his theory of general relativity, a comprehensive interpretation of gravity, space, time, and their links. These elegant theories have survived in science for more than a century, and they underpin a lot of what we know about the universe today. According to Einstein, mass is a form of condensed energy, which has a warping effect on the flat plane of space and time that lines our universe. The resulting curvature on this flat plane is felt as gravity. Gravity is the effect of objects of mass attracting one another by distorting space-time. It is the simplest yet most profound of the fundamental forces which govern our universe. We don't need anything special, like heat. All we need is mass. If you have mass, you have gravity. And as such, it dominates the behaviour of the universe at all levels, from the small particle level interactions to the large-scale behaviour of galaxies. Our understanding of the latter owes to this man, Edwin Hubble, an American astronomer who was not afraid to take on the biggest questions, making a number of groundbreaking discoveries. Before Hubble, it was believed that the universe was static, in that it was neither expanding nor contracting, and was populated entirely by stars and nebulae in every direction. However, in late 1924, Hubble found that one such so-called nebula was actually a separate collection of stars like the Milky Way, but much further beyond than originally thought, leading to the revelation that the Milky Way galaxy is in fact part of a larger universe of thousands or perhaps even millions of other galaxies. By the end of the decade, in 1929, Hubble then followed this up with one of the greatest discoveries of all time, that the universe itself is expanding and not static. These revelations, along with Einstein's theories and the work of some other great scientists, have all fed into our current model of cosmology, the lambda cold dark matter model, or lambda CDM. This is a well-established and documented model for cosmology, admittedly not without its shortcomings and unanswered questions, but it is still our best effort at comprehending the origins and nature of the universe nonetheless. So far, that is. Central to it all is the Big Bang theory, the idea that the universe began as a point of extremely high density and pressure. Because we know that our universe is constantly expanding, if you trace this ongoing process back to the beginning of the universe, you come to a point where the universe was microscopic and compressed before it suddenly began to expand. We're not sure how or why, but there is good evidence that, at the very least, the universe was much smaller and hotter around 13.8 billion years ago. The time preceding crosses into the untestable realms of physics, but we believe that in the earliest nanoseconds of the universe's life, something caused it to suddenly and radically expand in an event known as cosmic inflation, bypassing the benchmarks of all known speeds and laws, changing the universe not in size, but in scale. The tiny universe as it was in that moment was enlarged, scaled up by a factor of at least 10 to the power of 78 in volume. Every nanometer of space was stretched to over 10 light years, and all of this happened in under a fraction of a second. We're not sure what the total expanse of the universe was after this inflationary epoch, but what it meant was that the universe's interior was suddenly spread apart much more sparsely, giving its primordial energy a lot more room for things to happen. After inflation, as the temperature of the universe continued to fall, the energy within condensed into a giant universal plasma, and from there decayed into the first particles, and then into subatomic particles like protons and neutrons. Fast forward almost 14 billion years, and the universe is now huge and brimming with much larger and richer structures. Atoms have collected into clouds of gas, and gas clouds have become stars. And today, most of those stars belong to enormous ancient galaxies. Most of these galaxies are gathered in large clusters and superclusters, which all connect to form a 3D path across intergalactic space known as the cosmic web. When we talk about space, most of the time we are referring to the observable universe, or the known universe. This is a spherical, geocentric region of space that is comprised of all the galaxies and matter that can be detected from Earth, because their light emissions have had enough time to reach the solar system since they were emitted. Light travels at just under 300,000 kilometers per second. That is extremely fast, the fastest speed attainable in the universe in fact. But even just beyond our galaxy, there is a light delay which impairs our ability to see the universe as it appears now. That's why it helps to use light years as a unit of measurement. Proxima Centauri, our nearest star, is 4.2 light years away, meaning we see the star as it was about 4 years ago, and that's just on a stellar scale. The space between galaxies is incomparably larger. The distance between us and our nearest spiral galaxy, Andromeda, is around 2.5 million light years. So we see Andromeda as it was when humanity had only just started using stones as tools. The further away a galaxy is, the longer the light travel time, and the younger the galaxy appears to be. And so, the deeper we look, the further back we are looking in time, through the different stages of the universe's life. And nothing has allowed us to look deeper into this rich history than the magnificent Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Telescope is a bus-sized satellite which launched in 1990. It orbits the Earth and faces out towards space, allowing it to image the universe undeterred by atmospheric disturbances which hamper ground-based telescopes. It has a number of different instruments and filters, and has received numerous upgrades throughout the years which have kept it at the forefront of human technology. Hubble has snapped over 1.1 million bedazzling images of the cosmos since its launch, from nearby stars and nebulae to galaxies at the very distant edge of the observable universe. Its deep camera technology allows us to look ever deeper into space, revealing a much younger universe that has been constantly changing and evolving. Nothing captures this evolution quite like the Hubble Deep Field. The Hubble Deep Field image is one of the most important images ever. It was taken in 1995 after Hubble received a servicing upgrade 2 years earlier, which dramatically broadened the telescope's ability to see the most distant galaxies. Around 1/10 of the Hubble telescope's operational time is allocated to high-ranking staff and physicists wishing to study unexpected phenomena. And so, the then director of the Space Telescope Science Institute, Robert Williams, devoted his time slot to imaging extremely faint and distant galaxies as a means to test our theories on the age and size of the universe. Unlike most of the images captured by Hubble, which usually have a luminous target, the deep field image was created by focusing the telescope's instruments on a tiny, seemingly empty patch of the night sky, where nothing can be seen from the Earth. In order for this to work, the telescope needed an area with a high enough galactic latitude that the field would not be obscured by the light from the Milky Way's core. Thus, a small area was chosen in the constellation of Ursa Major, also known as the Big Dipper or the Plough. The point chosen by Williams was tiny, an area roughly 1/12 of the diameter of the Moon in the sky, equivalent to a mere 1/24 millionth of the total night sky expanse. Over some 10 days, the telescope gathered light from the area, and 342 photographs were taken using a variety of the telescope's filters. The data was then processed and the image was compiled, revealing a majestic view of the universe's history. Contained within this tiny, pin-sized segment of the sky are over 3,000 galaxies at an array of distances, including some of the oldest and most distant that had been discovered at the time. This image isn't so much a representation of distance in the universe, rather it is a window back through time. In the shallower field, we can see rich spiral galaxies, but the further back we travel, the less luminous and structured the galaxies become. Most of the very distant galaxies in the image occupy only a few pixels and shine much less brightly because these early galaxies had not had much time for vigorous star formation, but instead had lots of early star-forming gases. The presence of many unstructured, irregular galaxies in the early universe reaffirms our belief that, after the Big Bang, matter began building from the ground up. First atoms, then stars, then clusters of stars, then torrid dwarf galaxies. And after billions of years of star birth and death, and countless galactic collisions, rich spiral galaxies like the ones we see here began to form. Compound galaxies bursting with luminous stars. If we were able to see the most distant recesses of the deep field as it is today, then we would probably see large spiral and elliptical galaxies like we do in our surrounding space. But again, light just gives us that special opportunity to stare backwards through time. In the following year, a follow-up deep field image was taken to ensure that the original was truly representative of the distant universe. The results of the Hubble Deep Field South image were much the same, this time even capturing the light from a quasar in the early universe. After another servicing mission to Hubble in 2002, the telescope was able to take even deeper images still, and in 2004 they snapped the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, the deepest photograph of the universe ever taken, from the constellation of Fornax. This image reaches the limit of what is possible to observe through visible light in space. To see any further back, we need to use infrared radiation. A 2009 servicing mission to Hubble equipped it with new sensitive infrared detecting instruments, and Hubble re-snapped all 3 deep fields in infrared, this time revealing thousands more primordial galaxies and several of the most distant ever to be observed. And we probably won't get a better picture than this one until the James Webb Telescope finally launches. Edwin Hubble and his accompanying legacy have had a profound impact on modern day astronomy. But of his discoveries, one sticks out from the rest, underpinning everything that we observe and have spoken about today: cosmic expansion. The discovery that the universe itself is expanding. This came about after Hubble had surveyed 24 newly discovered nearby galaxies and had established a linear relationship between the radial velocity of the galaxies and their distance from Earth. Simply put, galaxies outside of our local galactic group all appear to be moving away from us, and the further away they are, the faster they appear to be receding. Everything in the universe seems to be moving away from everything else, into its own pocket of space, without changing its position. Hubble's conclusion was that space itself is expanding at a consistent rate across all points, spreading the galaxies of the universe further apart from each other. When space expands, new space is created everywhere, all over the universe. Space itself stretches apart in every direction to make more space. It is like the universe is inflating rather than expanding. Because all objects are getting further away from all other objects relative to each other, there is no center. Space has no boundaries, edges, or walls that mark the end. So how do we go about visualizing this? Well, imagine that this sphere represents the universe, but rather than space being on the inside, it is mapped to the outside surface. As the sphere expands, the surface area of the space for the outside galaxies increases at the same rate, and as such, there is no center. No galaxy on this sphere's surface is any more central than any other galaxy. Of course, the sphere itself does have a center, but this doesn't represent a physical location within the universe. Rather, it represents a point in time, the Big Bang. It's an odd concept, but what this means is that even if space is finite and only occupies a certain volume, you could still roam around the universe indefinitely without meeting an edge. Much like if you were to fly an aeroplane round the Earth's equator, you would never fall off or run out of Earth to fly across. Instead, gravity would just bring you back round to the same place eventually. So, if you were able to travel considerably faster than light speed in a straight line, you would still come back to the same place eventually. We can see evidence of the universe's expansion everywhere thanks to a phenomenon known as redshift. Redshift is when electromagnetic radiation, such as visible light, undergoes an increase in wavelength. The wave is stretched out, resulting in a decrease in wave frequency and photon energy. For visible light, when analysing a galaxy's spectral emissions, this has the effect of shifting the absorption lines of certain elements towards the red end of the spectrum, turning visible light red. Because the universe is expanding at all places at once, as the light emitted from other galaxies travels towards Earth, the space it travels through elongates, stretching out the waves and redshifting the light. The more distant the galaxy, the further across ever-expanding space the light has to travel, and so light from more distant objects is redshifted more. And we can use this to determine how much the universe has expanded since said light was emitted. The Hubble constant, a measure for the rate at which space is expanding, is thought to be around 65 kilometers per second per megaparsec. A megaparsec is equivalent to about 3.2 million light years. So, the more megaparsecs there are between us and a galaxy, the more space there is between the two that is expanding, causing the galaxy to recede away faster. For example, 100 megaparsecs away, the space is receding away from us at a rate of over 6,500 kilometers per second. Because light's speed is limited to about 300,000 kilometers per second, there eventually comes a distance from the Earth at which galaxies are being pushed away from us faster than light speed. Not by breaking any laws of physics, because they themselves are not moving that fast, but because there is simply too much space between us and them for their light to be able to cross the universe in time to reach us. This constitutes the edge of our observable universe, the boundary beyond which we are unable to see any further, the cosmic horizon, or the particle horizon. Before this boundary, light from distant galaxies has had enough time to cross the expanding universe and meet our telescopes. But beyond the cosmic horizon, the light from the galaxies has either not had enough time to reach the solar system, or it is so far away that it will never be able to reach the solar system. As time passes, older and more distant light has time to pass through the solar system, and the observable universe grows, increasing our field of view. But this is entirely dependent on our position. For an observer at the cosmic horizon, space would appear much the same. But relative to us, the space beyond the horizon is what's known as causally disconnected, unreachable and undetectable to us by any known means. Because our observable universe is geocentric, the same is true of any planet in the universe. Every point in space has its own arbitrary observable universe with a radius of about 46 billion light years, marked by a cosmic horizon. This radius is determined not by how far away the most distant objects we have seen were when their light was emitted, but rather how far those objects are estimated to be now, as the space between us and them has grown so much since that light began travelling towards Earth. The most distant galaxies of the Hubble ultra-deep field have now receded to in excess of 40 billion light years away from the Earth, and their light would never possibly have enough time to reach us now. Beyond the cosmic horizon, light's speed and the universe's age are no longer compatible, and thus we are confined to our observable universe, segmented and detached from the full scale of the cosmos. Because of this, we are unable to conclude on what could lie beyond the boundary, but given that the universe appears to be relatively isotropic on a large scale, you would expect more of the same: clusters and superclusters of galaxies. The real question is, how much of it is there? As you might expect, that is a very difficult question to answer, and the estimates we have so far depend on measurements of the universe's curvature and assumptions about its shape, which still represents a somewhat grey area in cosmology. I'm skipping over some very complicated maths and science here, but in short, the best estimate we have so far, made by physicists at Oxford University, is that the total area of the universe must be at least 250 times the radius of the observable universe. This puts the total diameter of the universe at over 23 trillion light years, which would mean that the 93 billion light year observable universe that we can see accounts for a mere 1/15 millionth of its total expanse. If our observable universe is home to 2 trillion galaxies, then the unobservable universe may house as many as 30 quintillion of them. In truth, we will probably never know the exact size of the total universe, but with the numbers considered here, it seems almost inevitable that somewhere else in space, life must be playing out on another world. The discovery of the universe's expansion is one of the most important discoveries ever, but we still didn't have the full picture. For a long time afterwards, astronomers expected that the rate of expansion would actually start slowing down, as the galaxies on the inside begin to pull back against the universe's inflation. However, as scientists quested to establish a more accurate value for the Hubble constant, a startling discovery was made. Since Hubble, redshift surveying techniques have improved significantly, and we can now detect galaxies not just millions of light years away, but billions. Because redshift is indicative of the universe's expansion, we can compare a galaxy's distance with its redshift to determine how much the universe has expanded at the different stages of its evolution. But that's easier said than done, because galaxies vary in brightness so much, so it becomes very difficult to estimate their distance precisely. A more suitable means to measure cosmic distances would be to take something with a known absolute magnitude, known as a standard candle, and calculate its distance by analysing the dimness of the object relative to how luminous it should be. With this in mind, two separate projects, the High-Z Supernova Search Team and the Supernova Cosmology Project, both attempted to measure the expansion of the universe over time by using distant Type 1a supernovae as standard candles. Type 1a supernovae are superluminous explosions caused by white dwarf stars in binary systems. They have a relatively consistent brightness and can outshine their entire galaxy. Using these stellar ghosts as calling cards, the two projects measured the distances of far-out objects and then compared this with each object's respective redshift values. The unlikely result was that the very distant objects seemed to be much further away than the more local objects. It's as if the universe has expanded more in the latter half of its life, or rather, its expansion is accelerating. We know that our universe has been expanding at different rates based on what it has been through in its life, and at one point it did look to be slowing down, as it was once predicted to do so. But then, around 4 billion years ago, and for a completely unknown reason, an invisible force began to hijack the universe's growth, causing its expansion to accelerate, leading to more aggressive expansion in its recent few billion years. Moving into the 21st century, we had opened the path to a new paradigm of astrophysics, the study of dark energy. Dark energy is the term given to the invisible force that is responsible for the accelerating expansion of the universe. We know barely anything about it, save for that it appears to work like an anti-gravity force. It exerts a negative, repulsive pressure that behaves inversely to gravity, which is aiding the universe's expansion rather than slowing it down. Dark energy is notoriously hard to study. It does not interact with light, so it cannot be seen nor detected, and there are many hypotheses describing its nature and prevalence. But what we do know is that, around 9.8 billion years of cosmic time, this energy became the prevailing energy in the universe, marking the beginning of the dark energy-dominated era. In the early universe, radiation dominated its behaviour. Then, for almost 10 billion years, matter was the dominating influence. However, as the universe has expanded, the density of matter has been falling as it has been spread more sparsely. Dark energy, on the other hand, is believed to remain consistent in its density, meaning more of it pops into existence proportionally as the universe expands. Thus, there came a tipping point around 4 billion years ago where the density of matter fell below that of dark energy, preventing gravity from slowing down the universe's expansion and instead began speeding it up, casting the oldest, most distant galaxies much further away. On a local scale, the expansion of the universe is very weak, and so gravity is able to keep objects such as galaxies held together, regardless of how big the universe becomes. However, the massive cosmic voids between galaxies and galaxy clusters are growing from within their dark interiors, gradually separating galaxies and galactic groups, like our local group, into their own isolated pockets of space. But because the expansion of the universe is accelerating thanks to dark energy, in time, space will be growing so quickly that even our nearest galaxies will recede away from us much too quickly for their light to ever be able to keep up. Gradually, galaxies at the edge of the observable universe will start disappearing from view as their light is no longer able to keep reaching the solar system, and the cosmic horizon will begin to draw inwards. This will continue until even our nearest galaxies are flung beyond the cosmic horizon, rendering even our local universe invisible. In the very distant future, every galaxy's view of the universe will start and end with its own stars, with nothing but empty darkness beyond the outer rims. We will never see another galaxy again. With galaxies separated from one another, they will not be able to merge, and will thus eventually stop producing new stars. The Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies will merge before any of this happens, but after that, the resulting elliptical galaxy will gradually burn through the last of its stars. Inevitably, the day will come when the last stars of the universe have either gone out or exploded, bringing the universe into a second, eternal dark age. Ultimately, the universe's energy will be lost through natural processes, until nothing is ever able to happen again. The universe will reach its heat death, the ceasing of all heat and energy exchanges. Thereafter, the universe will be a totally homogeneous, incomprehensibly large and boundless void, eternally dominated by dark energy. A bit of a depressing ending to be sure, but there you have it, the fate of the universe in the age of darkness.
How big is the universe? Why even ask or attempt to answer that question? We're all living our lives in our own little bubble, so why even think about something so abstract? Now, I believe that we should explore and get a better understanding of the universe because it's about self-discovery. Learning more about the universe tells us more about ourselves because, in essence, it is us. We are the universe. We're not separate from it. We are literally it. As Alan Watts said, we are an aperture through which the universe is exploring itself. My intent with this video is to show you, visually, just how huge the universe is, and also touch on what we can learn from that. Stick with me, because however big you think the universe is, it's bigger. Much, much bigger. The observable universe, just the part we can see, is 93 billion light years in diameter. Now, when I say 93 billion light years in diameter, that doesn't really mean much. We know it's big, but we can't really conceptualize a number that large. Large numbers are difficult to visualize, so let's start with something we all know, Earth, and then we'll work our way up from there. Our pale blue dot is bigger than most people give it credit for. If you could drive around the entire Earth at 60 miles per hour, it would take just over 17 days to go around it. Or if you were to fly around it in a standard airliner, it would take you just over 2 days. So yeah, this rocky dirt ball we call Earth is pretty big. It's taken humanity thousands of years to traverse the globe, to develop it, and to map it all out. And those are all pretty recent accomplishments in the grand scheme of things. Zooming out from Earth, we'll eventually see the moon. Now we've all seen pictures like this in the upper left corner, and it makes it seem like the Earth and moon are pretty close. But as the moon comes in from the right, it becomes apparent that they are very far apart. The moon is 238,000 miles away. Even a number this small is hard to conceptualize, at least for me it is. We all understand the speed of a car, so we'll use that to show just how far away the moon is. Now imagine getting in your car and driving at 60 miles an hour for 6 months. No sleeping or bathroom breaks either. That's how long it would take to drive to the moon. This moon, this satellite that orbits the Earth, is the furthest humans have made it into space. 12 people have walked on the moon, and that's an amazing feat, but really not very far when you consider what else is out there. We have some probes and robots that have made it further, but this is the furthest we as a species have made it. We really are at the infancy stage of space exploration. As we move out, you'll see the orbits of other planets turn on. Now, we've all seen graphics of the solar system that show the planets to be quite large and close together. Obviously, this is done for practical purposes, otherwise we wouldn't be able to see any detail. The problem, though, just as is done with the Earth and the Moon in many cases, is people assume that's what it's really like out there. This really gives a false impression of the immense size of the solar system. If you were to look at the solar system to scale from this distance, this is what you would see. Nothing. The planets are so small and the space so big, you literally wouldn't see anything. That's how small they are in comparison to the vastness of our solar system. Speaking of the planets, here's a true scale of the planets compared to each other. There is Earth, and there is our Sun, which you could fit 1 million Earths inside of. The average distance between the Earth and Sun is 93 million miles. This distance is referred to as an astronomical unit. How far is that if it were a road trip? It would take 177 years to drive to the Sun, and if you're in a hurry, you could get there in about 19 years via commercial airliner. What about driving to Neptune? How long would that take? It would take 5,000 years by car and 600 years by plane. So yeah, the solar system is immense. And I want to give you one more visual to really drive home how big the space is between the planets. Let's shrink the solar system down to the size of a football field. At this scale, our Sun is just over 1 inch in diameter and sitting on the goal line. The inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are smaller than the ball in a ball-tip pen, and they're all within the first few yards. The outer planets, or the gas giants, would be smaller than BB pellets and way, way further down the field. The solar system is huge, and it's easy to see why we haven't made it very far. There's a lot of empty space out there. Hope is not lost, though. We've sent several probes and robots into space, and they can go much faster than a car or plane. Our furthest probe, Voyager 1, which you're seeing the path of here as an orange line, was launched in 1977 and has been traveling for over 42 years. It's going about 38,000 miles an hour and is now over 13 billion miles away. It's the most distant man-made object in space. It passed all the other planets' orbits back in the 80s, and it's still going. Voyager 1's official departure from the solar system occurred in August 2012. As we zoom out, you may be wondering where the boundary of our solar system is. Great question and a bit tricky to answer. Some define the edge of the solar system using Neptune's orbit, which is 5.6 billion miles in diameter. Some use Pluto's orbit, others use the heliosphere, and some others define the border of the solar system at the outer limits of the Oort cloud. That's the orange sphere you see here. The Oort cloud is made up of billions of comets, basically dirt ice balls, and they orbit the Sun way, way beyond the orbit of Neptune. So there are several ways to define the edge of the solar system. In one, where Neptune is the outer boundary, it takes light 4 hours to go from the Sun to the edge of the solar system. In the other scenario, with the Oort cloud, it takes light over a year and a half to go from the Sun to the edge of the solar system. That's over 3,000 times larger than Neptune's orbit. So quite a big difference between them. For the sake of simplicity, I'll be using Neptune as the boundary of the solar system. I mentioned a light year, so let's touch on that briefly. A light year is the distance that light travels in a year. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Here are the Earth and Moon to scale. It takes light 1.3 seconds to get from the Earth to the Moon. It would take you 6 months to drive that far, and light is traveling that far in 1.3 seconds. That's fast. It's going 186,000 miles per second, 11 million miles every minute, 670 million miles every hour, 16 billion miles every day, and just about 6 trillion miles every year. Everything is so far away in space, and we don't want to have to write down these huge numbers. So we use the term light year to make it easier on us. In terms of light speed, we're just 8 minutes from the sun. That's how long it takes light to travel from the sun to the Earth, and Neptune is 4 hours away in terms of light speed. If I haven't said it enough, let me say it one more time. The solar system is really big, which is really why we haven't made it too far just yet. But when you compare our solar system to the Milky Way, it's just ridiculously small. As we zoom out in our journey, you'll see the nearest star to us, Proxima Centauri. It's about 4.2 light years from the Earth. That's 25 trillion miles. Great, huge numbers again. Let's simplify it a little. If you scale down our solar system to the size of a quarter, how many quarters, or how many of our solar systems, could you fit between us and the nearest star? Go ahead, give it a guess. 1, 5, 10. You could fit 4,450 of our solar systems between us and the nearest star. At this scale, the nearest star is 350 feet away from our little quarter-sized solar system. Just to humor you, it would take 47 million years to drive there, or 5 million by plane if you're in a hurry. Now, if you're going the speed of a space probe like Voyager 1, which is traveling at 38,000 miles per hour, it would take about 73,000 years to travel to the nearest star, 4.2 light years away. Which isn't too bad, but it's still over 2,500 generations. So obviously we're not getting there until our technology improves. There's Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. It's about 8 light years away. Here's our little neck of the woods, about 16 light years from Earth. There are 52 star systems within this area, but we can't see all of them because some of them are quite dim. But you can see other far-off stars. There's Betelgeuse off in the distance of 645 light years away. That star is 1,000 times larger than our sun. That's our interstellar neighborhood, about 50 light years across. With our current technology going the speed of Voyager, it would take almost 1 million years to travel across this region in space. Zooming out a bit more, just beyond our interstellar neighborhood, we get to the radiosphere. This sphere represents the extent of all human broadcasts since about the time of World War II, when we became radio bright as a species. At about 160 light years across, this area is filled with approximately 3,000 to 5,000 stars. Again, not all are pictured here because only the brightest stars can actually be seen from this distance. By the way, you're seeing real data here, real stars and their locations from a program called OpenSpace. This is the digital universe, and if you're interested in exploring it yourself, please go check them out. I'll link to their website below. It's completely free as well. As we get close to 1,000 light years away, which is just 1% the diameter of the Milky Way, it becomes apparent that the Milky Way is larger than we can even imagine. There are at least 100 billion stars in the Milky Way. That's 100,000 millions. But big numbers kind of go in one ear and out the other. When we hear the term a billion, we don't visualize it. We simply can't. We just say, yeah, a billion, that's like a lot. It doesn't quite register. So let's take a second to talk about big numbers. To count to 1,000 would take 17 minutes. To count to 1 million would take 12 days. And to count to 1 billion would take 32 years. If that doesn't do it for you, let's try visually. Here are 100 stars. 100 of those is 10,000. 100 of those is 1 million. 1 million is a lot, right? But believe it or not, it's not much compared to a billion. It's just 1/1000th. Here is 100 million. Here is 1 billion, and keep in mind that each small block is 1 million. And finally, 100 billion. Okay, one last example. We'll use distance this time. If 15 feet were to represent 1,000, then 1 million would be 3 miles. And 1 billion would be from Cape Canaveral to Seattle. Oh, and a trillion? That would be 12 times further than from here to the moon. I just want to stress this point so we can really appreciate what a huge number 100 billion is before we get deeper into this, because the universe is about to get a whole lot bigger. Let's zoom out to the entire galaxy, full of billions of stars. Remember that blue sphere that was 160 light years wide? That's it. That's the speed of light radiating from our planet in the form of radio waves for the last 80 years or so. We haven't even made a dent. Some astronomers even believe there are as many as 400 billion stars in our galaxy alone. That's absolutely mind-numbing. The Milky Way is home to hundreds of billions of stars, each one potentially having its own planets and possibly its own life forms. In the last 20 to 30 years, we've studied very small sections in the Milky Way and discovered that other stars have planets too. Based on this data, scientists now believe that most of the stars in our Milky Way actually have a family of planets orbiting them. By extrapolating this data, that means there are billions of other planets out there in our Milky Way alone. The Milky Way is about 120,000 light years across and 1,000 light years thick on average. Alright, if that doesn't make much sense, let's forget huge numbers for a second. Let's use another comparison to bring things down to a scale we can relate to. Let's go back to our solar system being shrunk down to the size of a quarter. If our entire solar system was the size of a quarter, our Milky Way galaxy would be about the size of North America. I can't even find a quarter in my own couch, and if you said to find one particular quarter in North America, it would be pretty much impossible. Trying to see our solar system at this scale would be like trying to see a quarter from space. Now, our sun is just one of hundreds of billions of stars in our Milky Way. So imagine all of North America covered with billions of quarters. The quarters representing star systems like ours. At the center of each quarter is a tiny speck, smaller than a speck of dust, that represents a star. At this scale, our nearest star, Proxima Centauri, as mentioned earlier, is 350 feet away. So imagine, if you will, quarters scattered all over the place, every few hundred feet, all over North America. That's pretty incredible. Here you can see the orbit of our sun around the galaxy. Even though the sun is traveling around the galaxy at over 500,000 miles per hour, it still takes 225 million years to complete one revolution. If you're still not impressed with the sheer magnitude of space, let's move past our galaxy. Let's get serious. The Andromeda Galaxy is about 2.5 million light years away. Zooming out even further to about 110 million light years, we see the Virgo supercluster. There are thousands of galaxies here, similar to ours, with hundreds of billions of stars and planets. As we continue to zoom out, we see other superclusters that have been mapped out. The dark region is called the zone of galactic obscuration because it is obscured by our own Milky Way. And finally, quasars come into the picture. As we move past the cosmic background radiation left from the Big Bang, we see the entire observable universe. 93 billion light years across. We may never know what's beyond the part of the universe that we can see, but due to the acceleration of space, it is believed that the universe itself is at least 250 times bigger than the observable universe. Wow, a lot of information, but what's the point? What can we learn from all of this? First, can we all be honest with ourselves for a minute? The truth is, we know nothing. Pretending we have all the answers limits our open-mindedness to what's really out there. Look at us, floating around on our little dirt rock ball in the middle of nowhere. It's great that we're able to see as deep and as far as we can into the universe, but ultimately, we know nothing. We don't know why things happen the way they do. More than likely, whatever it is that is happening for reasons that our little brains simply can't comprehend. So the next time something happens that doesn't go your way, just go with it, man. Just go with the flow. Do you really think there's any point in resisting the universe? Also, we don't have to know everything. Accept that we don't have all the answers and enjoy life. Live the moment you're in, do things you're passionate about, and just have a good time while you're here. Second, you are the universe. Eckhart Tolle stated, "You are not in the universe, you are the universe, an intrinsic part of it. Ultimately, you are not a person, but a focal point where the universe is becoming conscious of itself." What an amazing miracle. Obviously, from our limited perspective at this moment, being in our heads, we feel quite separate from the universe. But think about this. Every atom inside your body was once in a star. When a star explodes, it sends new materials and elements all over the place. And that's where carbon, metals, and everything else comes from. That in turn forms other stars and the planets ultimately create you. That's how you were made, literally from star stuff. It took billions of years for the universe to evolve and change and create us. We're tiny, but we're also exceptionally special, as is everything in the cosmos. Here's my belief. The universe is intelligent. It's not just a bunch of dumb matter floating around colliding haphazardly. One universal intelligence, or one consciousness, is what's guiding this whole thing, including you. We just feel like separate selves because that's how our limited minds work. You didn't come into the universe as some separate thing. You came out of the universe. You were born from it. Ultimately, you're not some separate thing. You're the whole thing, which means we're all in this together. As Neil deGrasse Tyson puts it, we're all connected. To each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically. Not only are we in the universe is in us. So do your best to treat everyone with love, respect, and dignity. We need to stick together as a species and a planet if we're going to survive. And I think we will. I'll leave you with one final quote. The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Carl Sagan. If you stuck around for this entire video, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you can. And please drop me a comment and let me know what you think we can learn from the enormity of the universe. I would love to see what you all think. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.
Fuck it, dude. I'll put it up here.